Had a good workout today. We ran 4 by quarter mile repeats and I held at a 1:35 pace. Oh hey, I want to talk a little bit right now about journaling, and there are 3 things that really come together for me when it comes to the journaling process. Where was I, where am I, and where am I going? It's the 3 time zones that I talk about. And journaling has probably been one of the things that has been such a part of my professional and personal life over the past 15, 20 years. And I've actually kept these little journals that I started doing daily journaling at the end of the day, what I'm going to talk about in this short video, back when I was teaching high school. And what I've graduated to over the years is now, every year in January, I buy one of these hardback journals. And when you open it up here, what it has is it's just got a day on each side. And so I can look back on the year, and you can just see here, I've written things down at the, I do this at the end of the day. And what I do is I stop and I just ask myself, what did I finish today? What new opportunity did I create today? What did I learn about today? What happened today? What did I experience today? And for me, it's fascinating. It gives me a snapshot. It's back to that subjective objective, right? It gives me a snapshot of, well, here's what I was thinking about at least that one day. And journaling is nothing outrageous or new. I'm going to pull a couple of resources that have been pretty influential to my life. I found this book in a bookstore many, many years ago. It's a book by this guy named Edwin Bliss called Getting Things Done. And in here, he talks about the importance of writing things down. He said, you have no idea where your time is really going. Memory is notoriously unreliable in this area because we really tend to remember the highlights of the day, and I'm going to add, we remember the lowlights of the day. I'll ask you, when you've gotten home over the past week, month, or quarter, when you remember the most heated and emotional and energetic conversations that you had at home, were they about what you finished and celebrated, or were they about what didn't get done or what fell through the cracks? Another book that has been influential to me as a triathlete is this one by Joe Friel. If you're thinking at all of getting into multisport, this is the book for you. But what he talks about is the absolute significance, and he calls it a training diary. But let me just read this line to you right here. It says, without a record of your workouts and racing experiences, you must rely on memory, which all too often is spotty or recalls exaggerated versions of what you did a year ago, last month, or even yesterday. So what I want to do is I'm trying to make the case for getting those ideas that are rolling around in your head onto paper for later review. And if you're willing, if you're feeling a little risky, call your coach, call your mentor after you've done a journal for a week or a month or even a quarter. And if you're feeling, if you're really up for it, give me a call. All you got to do is scan your couple of journal pages, send them over to me, and let's have a quick phone chat. I'd love to ask you a few questions about what you remember, why you remember that, why that stood out. Most importantly, the purpose of my journals has been, here's where I was, here's what I was thinking about, here's what I was worrying about, here's what used to be on my mind. Now, where am I going? Now, a couple of little saving graces here. I want to get this portion of the video done within 5 minutes. Stay tuned because I'm going to go deeper if you want through the next 10-minute session. Journaling does not need to be linear sentences and paragraphs. One of the journaling techniques I use is I start on one side of the paper. I always date stamp when I have my ideas, so that way I can know about how long ago this was. Also, I might put in where I was thinking of that. So this one here says 2/21/08, 7:30 a.m. at the Ojai Coffee Roasting Company. So that kind of gives me time and space. Where was I thinking and what was I thinking about? Now the first thing, if you would have seen me doing this, the first thing I do is I'll draw a diagram I'll put whatever's on in my head onto paper. And then over here is where I try and explain to myself what it was that I was thinking. How often these have actually turned into articles. The next book that I'm writing has several pages where I push the diagram that I drew and then I explain that over time. Hey, stay a little bit longer. If you have the time, I want to tell you a few more things about journaling that have really been beneficial to me and some of the clients that I've worked with. A time log has the same effect as a dash of cold water on your face in the morning. It's a bit unpleasant for a moment, but it wakes you up and gets you started. That's what journaling does for me. You know, it's one of those things where as I end the day and I look at that piece of paper and I'm starting to write some things down, it's kind of self-assessment time. Hey, Jason, did you do those most important things? Did you spend your time, your energy, your focus? Did you create your day so that I can look back and realize and recognize, hey, I made forward motion progress? One of the questions that I ask my clients is, did you move your mission forward today? And if you did, what's the objective assessment of that? What's the acknowledgement of that? So many times, many of the people that I work with, they don't have a regular outside-in acknowledgement. If anything, they have a to-do list that they check off and they move that thing from incomplete to complete. If it's a piece of paper and you get through that list of to-dos and you throw that piece of paper away, really there's no running record of what happened and what went down. Remember I showed you the diagrams that I drew over there in that one little journal. So what I can do is just at the end of the day or midday as I leave the office, just splash down on the piece of paper, hey, here's what happened. Is there a difference between journaling with pen and paper versus opening up your iPhone or your Droid or your BlackBerry and adding something to the note? I think there is. I think there is. I've tried different kinds of journaling. I've used Recall as a way of calling in, dropping a voicemail, having that transcribed and emailed to me, and then I put that over in a little folder called Jason's Journal. The only situation I found with that is I rarely, if ever, look back on that thing. Where my handwritten journal, I do. And the way that I've got this now, if you were to see it, pull open my Tickler file here at home, you would see every couple months I've got a journal from years past. Now I don't have all of them, but I just kind of cycle them through so that I can see, hey, what was I thinking in 2002? What was going on in 1997? It's pretty exciting. One other thing that I want to say about getting things out on paper versus typing them. This here is just a typical mind map. This is something that I learned from reading a lot of books by Buzan, Tony Buzan. And what you'll see here is I've got all kinds of things going on, right? I've got words around here, I've got some colored areas, I've got more words, I've got pictures and diagrams. And what this does is it just gives me a way of seeing outside of my head what's going on inside of my head. And I didn't make any of this up, right? You know, the book that I would recommend here is called the Mind Mapping Book. And this really, this is Tony Buzan wrote this. This really shows you how to tap in to all that information stored there. And one of the reasons that I mind map as much as I do is that it actually saves me time. When I splash down a word or a picture, it saves me time from having to write a whole sentence, right? I can write one word in my notebook, and that word, when I review it later on, means a whole bunch to me. I don't have to write the whole sentence out word for word. In fact, he's got 9 advantages of mind mapping right here on this one page. Probably the second highest benefit I get from getting the ideas onto paper this way is it actually up-levels and quickens my concentration. It up-levels it because, you know, I've got my colored pens or pencils there and I'm kind of taking a look there, I'm drawing something, I'm writing something, I'm really focused, and it's just faster. I can get a lot more information out on that piece of paper in a much quicker fashion. Now, over the years, I've shared this technique and I've worked this technique with all kinds of clients. I've worked with Olympic athletes, I've worked with business people, I've worked with entrepreneurs, I've worked with nonprofit organizations, a lot of solopreneurs and freelancers. And across the board, one of the things that I hear back time and time again is that people enjoyed what I call me time. It's me time. It's not family time or friends time or health time or work time or research time or team time. It's me time. It's that time at the end of the day where I get to pull out a piece of paper. Now remember, this notebook is about the size of my hand. This is all I'm talking about, right? You only get one page there to write down what happened that day. So you have to be a little, choosy, I guess the word would be. I want to be a little choosy about what lands there, the good, the middle, and the bad. There's 3 time zones that we all live and work in. We work in the past, we work in the present, we work in the future. Now, because the past is done, there's really nothing I can do about that. The future, it's coming. It requires that I step into it and that I kind of wait for that bell to ring, if you will. The real time that I can address, the real time zone that I can really affect is right now. It's what can I write down, get out of my head, and then review later on to potentially get some ideas from, to potentially get some benefit from. Now, journaling, if you've not done this before, it can be a little mysterious. It can be a little hard. You know, I know a lot of people will look around, they'll shop around, they'll want to get the perfect journal, the perfect pen. They'll want to think that they should journal at the same time every day. To make this really easy for yourself, here's my starting point recommendation. If you have kids, go into their office, their desk. If you don't, then go buy a stack of 3x5 index cards. Remember those ones that we used in college to write our papers? And you're going to get way too many of these, right? They come in packs of 100. You really only want to start with 5. And what I'll ask you to do is to take a pen and put it in the clippy point, put it in those stack of 3x5 note cards, put that by your bed. Now over the next 5 nights, when you get into bed, it's going to be a 5-minute or less experiment. And you got to do this 5 times. For 5 minutes or less, pull out that one index card and see if you can fill it up. Now remember, I've already shared a couple of tools and tips with you. You don't have to write 4 or 5 sentences. You don't have to write 60 or 90 words. You could draw one picture. You could make one mind map. You could draw one chart, one graph. You could put a big word down there, a word of the day, if you will. I actually started doing this just this year, where at the end of each journal entry, I've been putting my word of the day. And I'm not going to read all of these to you, but this is just from January 1. Here's some of the words of the day. Deliberate, persistence, completion, present, grace, friendship, relative, bigger, trust, intent, completion. You'll notice I kind of journal, and then I read that entry and I ask myself, what's the word that kind of jumps to my mind? What comes to mind when I think about today? And then I pull one word out and I put that at the bottom of the entry. Make this easy for you, because what we want to do is at the end of this, at the end of 5 days or 10 days, or as long as you want to commit to the experiment, you want to look back and ask yourself, is it worth it? Do I want to change it? Do I want to continue it? And the offer stands. If you want to journal for a few days and then you want to go through some little assessment, all you got to do is scan those pages, send them over to me via email, and we'll book a 10-minute conversation. Who knows? Maybe I can ask a couple questions. Maybe you can ask a couple questions. Maybe we explore something that really takes the ideas that you've got in your head. When you get to see them on paper, when you get to discuss them voice to voice, maybe we can go further faster. All right, that's all that I've got for this one. The takeaway, go start journaling. I'll see you soon.